Oh, okay. I don't know what to pound on these. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, it is. I'm Portland City Councilor Dan Ryan. Welcome to the third Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee meeting of 2025. I'm joined by my colleagues today. There's City-appointed Community Member Charity Kreider. Hi, Charity. City-appointed Business Community Representative Dan Floyd. And county-appointed member Felicia Tripp-Folsom. She's joining virtually, is that true? Okay. Hi, Felicia. And Multnomah County Commissioner Megan Moyer. I'm really grateful all of you are here today. I'm also joined by the Levy staff, the hardworking Levy staff, Erica, Joel, John, Meg, Lisa, Katrina, Brian, Yoshing. You're all here, right? Yes, thank you. So anyway, we're here in the room up in the council, the annex council chamber, and we're going to start this meeting off by looking at the minutes from April 23rd, and I'm going to ask a motion for the vote and approval of those minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Great.
Second.
We have seconds coming at us. Thank you, Felicia. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's done. Now the first PCL, we're going to start with the Portland Children's Levy Financial Analyst, John Kelly. We're going to introduce our guest speaker. John, you're already there. Thank you for being up there. And we will, this is the auditor's report.
Yes.
It's an
so-
annual report that we do. And just know, for those in the audience, we have just a few business items that we're going to cover. They won't take long. And then we'll get to the heart of the matter at the meeting. Take it away, John.
I'm John Kelly. I'm the financial analyst at the Levy, and I'm here to introduce Daniel Whitmore from Marina and Company. And he was on the ground doing our audit. I see Daniel. Take it away, Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So we completed our compliance examination of the Portland Children's Levy. We issued our report, which contained an unmodified or clean opinion on May 12th, 2025. Our opinion is limited to compliance requirements outlined in ballot measure 26-197. To ensure compliance with the measure, we assessed the adequacy of the levy's internal controls, tested the levy's administrative expenses to ensure that they were less than 5% of the cumulative tax revenue, and tested the levy's administration of grants and grantees compliance to ensure reimbursement expenses were allowable and in line with approved budgets. During the course of our examination, we found that the internal controls appeared to be adequate and provided a sound structure for processing of administrative expenses and grant reimbursements. The total administrative expenses were less than 5% of the cumulative tax revenues by $1,473,633, and all grantee reimbursements were allowable and within the approved budgets. There were no restrictions or significant difficulties incurred during the course of our examination. There were no disagreements with management, and we had no recommendations based on the current year examination.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you so much, first of all, Dan. And I would turn it over to my colleagues if you have any questions or comments before we vote.
I do have a question about the 1 million less than, or over the, how is that then allocated?
Did you hear that, Dan or John?
That would be a great question for John, I believe.
Thank you.
John, stay up there until it's
Sorry about that.
okay.
Meaning the amount that we're under the administrative cap is the question. It's not been allocated per se. Maybe you're referring to kind of the levy in general. Our administrative expenses going forward, our personnel expenses, which aren't all administrative, have all been built into the model to figure out how much money we have going forward. So there's not $1 million hanging out. We could spend up to that amount, but we're staying well under it, always have.
That's impressive.
Is that,
Yes,
okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
I don't know if it's always great that you all do this work with less than 5% overhead. It's obviously well below any industry standard in terms of what one would spend. So I do want to look you all in the eye to say thank you for your hard work. That's actually over the top impressive. And I'm really aware of how hard that is to be that low in overhead.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is this a voting item? Oh, it's not. It's an FYI. Okay.
And just for the general public to know, the report after this meeting, after you all accept it, will be on the website. So
Okay, great.
anyone can access this and for years and years.
Felicia, I can't see you. Is your hand up?
No, my hand is not up.
Okay. I try not to do that every time I can't see you. Any other questions, comments? John, Dan, thank you very much. We're in good hands with
Thanks,
the
Daniel.
fiscal ship at the Children's Lab. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
The next item, item 2, is a 2025 community report. So we'll hear about the 2025 community report from the Levy's Communication Outreach Director, Yoshing, is up and will present. Welcome, Yoshing.
Thank you, Chair Ryan, committee members. I know we've been heavy on the grant-making processes, but I want to take a few minutes to center the children and families who are at the heart of our work at the Portland Children's Levy. Our annual community report is a way to hear from the people most impacted by voter investments, including children, families, and staff at our grantee partners. 5 years after the pandemic started, organizations serving Portland children and families showed that they're more than ready to begin a promising new era. Grantee partners continue to work hard to build stable foundations that allow children and families to experience new opportunities and to imagine new futures. Many programs succeeded thanks to their ability to respond to community needs, support the health of families, and develop skills and provide experiences that prepare children and families for growth. Pictured here is a youth advocate and students in ERCO's Inspire After School program at Lincoln Park Elementary School. PCL provided grants to 85 programs totaling more than $28 million to support grantee partners working in after-school, child abuse prevention and intervention, early childhood, foster care, hunger relief, mentoring, community childcare, and smaller organizations working in these areas. In the pie chart pictured here, you can see the breakdown in dollar amounts and percentages by program area. The grant served 9,638 children. 77% of folks served identified as Black, Indigenous, and people of color. 37% lived in homes where the primary language spoken was not English. 44% lived or went to school east of 82nd Avenue. And I want to just note that these numbers so far are for all of our program areas, including our special initiatives and small grants, except for hunger relief, which is calculated slightly differently. And as we all know, there continues to be a high need for hunger relief programs as well. The Levy supported the distribution of more than 2.5 million pounds of food at more than 60 sites. Parents and caregivers, along with providers on the front lines, know what is most needed to support healthy, thriving families. For example, in order to better respond to community needs, most small grants recipients incorporate disability inclusion goals to better serve children with disabilities. That's the case for ELSO Inc. and its Wayfinders summer camp program for kindergartners through 8th graders, with a focus on teaching kids from economically disadvantaged communities, such as Black and Brown youth, about science, technology, engineering, art, math, environment, and design topics. ELSO staff visit potential field trip destinations months in advance and evaluate accessibility features to ensure programming will be inclusive. ELSO staff receive training to support children with physical and emotional disabilities. They also meet with parents and caregivers of students with disabilities ahead of camp and conduct evaluation surveys at the end. Pictured here are participants in ELSO's Wayfinders Camp who learn about the Portland Superfund site at Cathedral Park with partners from the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership. Jamie Newsom, the Wayfinders program director, said that, quote, "Wayfinders has spent the past 4 years creating camp that is accessible and inclusive for youth who are interested in outdoor STEAM education. Through the space we've created, youth and parents feel welcome and supported as they embark on experiencing life science outdoors." Supporting the health of families requires regular access to nutritious foods as well as care for children's social, emotional, and mental health. Thanks to a hunger relief grant, Neighborhood House offers the free food market mobile food delivery program that delivers customized food boxes to the homes of children and families. Staff deliver food every other week to children and families in 8 low-income housing communities in Southwest and Northwest Portland. Annually, the delivery program serves more than 450 children and distributes more than 275,000 pounds of food, helping families who otherwise couldn't get to the market to shop in person. And pictured here is Rafael Covanci, the food delivery service coordinator at Neighborhood House, gathering food for a client's order list. Many PCL-supported programs help children develop the social, emotional, academic, career, and life skills needed to succeed in a variety of future pathways. Grantee partners provide a range of services, including visits to college campuses, career exploration opportunities, academic support, and more. Family stability, of course, plays a key role in allowing both children and caregivers to imagine new futures. A child abuse prevention and intervention grant to the Pathfinder Network supports more than 150 parents who are involved with the criminal justice system or returning home after incarceration at the network's Center for Family Success. Services are offered in both English and Spanish. Programs focus on enhancing parenting skills, promoting healthy child development, interventions to reduce harm, prevention of future risks, and connecting families to resources to build resilience. Parents participate in individual and group parenting skills programming, gender-responsive trauma coping skills groups, case management, peer mentoring, family engagement events, and more. Pictured here is a single father who worked with the Pathfinder Network to reunify with his two daughters. I'd like to close with a thank you to our grantee partners and program participants who shared their stories in the report. For more stories like these, please check out the 2025 community report at portlandchildrenslevy.org and follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube at PDX Kids Levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoshing. That was a great report and a summary of a great report. Colleagues, any questions or comments before we move on to the small grant item? I hope you all take time to read the whole report. That's a lot of great work. This is about stories, and the stories are what sell us on, that allow our passion to stay relevant on any given day. So I appreciate the stories. So next we have the small grants report. It's actually the small grants funding round, and Erica is up already. Thank you for being ready, and take it away.
Okay. So for everyone here, the Small Grants Fund was established in 2020 in response to community engagement in the previous funding round. The purpose of the Small Grants Fund is to increase access to PCL funding for programs of small organizations that arise out of the communities they serve. In the case of the Small Grants Fund, we're speaking of organizations with less than $750,000 in annual revenue. And the fund also helps to increase capacity to serve these communities. Priority populations, The staff intend to move forward with the Small Grants Fund round in this next fiscal year and have been planning for the Small Grants round since January of 2025. We will incorporate any instructions from City Council into the process of the Small Grants Fund and are awaiting those instructions. And the priority populations will remain the same for the Small Grants Fund grantees as for the Large Grants Fund, which are children, youth, and families who identify as Black, Indigenous, children of color, immigrant and refugees, LGBTQIA+, and with disabilities. That is all I have on it at the moment. We are kind of in a holding pattern.
Thank you for that update. And I look forward to having more conversation with you about the city council engagement process on this. The next item will allow us to know why that's important. Any questions or comments to Erica?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You've done such a great job building this program. Yeah. Item number 4, large grant funding round. Next, we'll have Community Engagement Coordinator Katrina Peterson will start us off with an update about the large grant funding process alongside basically the entire staff. And so, thank you. This is the heart of the matter of the meeting. I'm glad that we went as quickly as possible to get to it. I appreciate it. Welcome. I don't know who's beginning, but take it away. You, Katrina.
So PCL grew out of a need to increase opportunities for all of Portland's children. Historic policies and practices have a direct relationship with disparities in outcomes for children navigating poverty and children of color. Community engagement prioritized limited resources for Black, Indigenous, and children and families of color, children with disabilities, youth who identify as LGBTQ2SIA+, immigrant and refugee children and families, families earning low incomes, and children and families who live in East Portland or North Portland. This funding round saw a significant increase in demand, while resources are substantially declining. The number of applications received increased 45% from the last large grants round in 2020. And PCL had a 200% increase in applications from organizations that don't have current PCL grants. In addition, PCL resources for large grants are down 21% compared to current funding levels due to declining levy revenue and spending down of PCL fund balance. This decrease means that there are not enough resources to continue all of PCL's current grants at their current level, never mind fund new grants. In total, applications requested over $3 for every $1 available. This means that most applications approved for funding received far less than requested. The combination of these factors created numerous competing priorities in this funding round. PCL staff, the Community Council, and the Allocation Committee wrestled with hard questions in this round. Some of these questions included how to balance continuing PCL funding for programs with positive performance with allocating funding to organizations without PCL funding who are meeting emerging or underserved community needs. Funding for different sized organizations, including consideration for smaller organizations which face more disadvantages compared to large organizations with grant writing capacity and experience in competitive grant making processes. And the diversity of PCL's priority populations, their needs, and their service priorities.
Is this, yes, okay. This table looks at the number of organizations that applied, regardless of the number of applications they submitted. It groups them by their cultural specificity and diversity of staff. It shows the percentage of organizations with applications that were approved for funding out of the total number of organizations that applied. PCL received applications from a total of 110 organizations, and 64 had applications approved for funding. The Allocation Committee made large grants funding decisions that resulted in approving a greater portion of culturally specific organizations compared to non-culturally specific organizations. 76% of culturally specific organizations that applied had applications approved for funding, compared to 49% of non-culturally specific organizations that applied. Among culturally specific organizations, 17 of 22 Black or African-focused organizations were approved for funding, and 11 of 15 Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, Indigenous, and multiracial culturally specific organizations were approved for funding. Using data that were provided in applications, we can also look at the diversity of staff in the non-culturally specific organizations who applied. It's worth noting that some non-culturally specific organizations are also led by people who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and for several of those organizations, over half of their staff also identify as people of color. Non-culturally specific organizations with less than half of their staff identifying as Black, Indigenous, and people of color comprised the largest part of our applicant pool, and yet they had the lowest portion of organizations selected for grants. I also want to remind everyone that PCL funds are public dollars, and regardless of what type of organization is funded, programs are open to any child or family seeking services. This slide looks specifically at the 94 applications that were approved for funding. So this is a different sort of number than the previous slide, which was looking at 64 organizations. Among the 94 applications approved for funding, 71% of the applications were to organizations with a majority Black, Indigenous, and people of color staff. This includes culturally specific organizations and non-culturally specific organizations. So the 3 blue slices on the pie represent that 71%. I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about some of the types of services offered by the non-culturally specific organizations. Next slide, please.
What, can I ask a question on
Yes,
that last
yes.
slide? Do you have comparison data to last time we made decisions, the time before that? My gut is data that says that we're giving more and more of our funds to the BIPOC community.
I would have to look at I mean, we have that data. I don't have it crunched.
I know
and
you don't need it now.
yeah.
I just think it would be helpful to see how the children's levy has evolved over the years. Yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Thank you.
A couple of other key points. 50% of the organizations, so that's the 64, approved for funding are smaller organizations with annual revenues between $750,000 and $6 million annually. And 42% of the organizations approved for PCL funding had not received PCL funding currently, and over half of those were culturally specific organizations. Among the non-culturally specific organizations that had applications approved for funding, we wanted to provide some context on some of the specialized types of services that were proposed. Many of these services are specific to other PCL priority populations, such as houseless youth, justice-involved youth, justice-impacted youth, and LGBTQIA2S+ youth. In fact, this was the first time that PCL had funded specific mentoring services for children and youth who identify as LGBTQIA2S+. In addition, many of these services include programs that PCL is currently funding that have had positive performance and that provide unique services for children and families, including children and families who are Black, Indigenous, and children of color. Some of those types of services include job training and GED completion, as well as specific Black, Indigenous, and LGBTQIA2S+ mentors for houseless youth, mentorship for transgender children and their caregivers, mentorship for children who are criminal justice impacted, including services that support their parents and offer after-school enrichment for youth in juvenile detention, school-based food pantries serving 4 school districts, weekend food bags for houseless children, grocery delivery for families with medical conditions, disabilities, and other barriers to food access, relief nursery services, grief support for youth in foster care, legal advocacy for foster youth in school settings, technical child abuse evaluation and therapeutic services for their families, and arts and sports education.
So the allocation committee made their funding decisions on April 23rd. Written, video, and audio testimony was submitted and reviewed by the allocation committee prior to the meeting, and all the decisions made at the meeting were unanimous. On May 13th, City Council and PCL staff met for a work session. City Council does not take verbal or written testimony at a work session. Staff presented about the funding round process, and councilors were able to ask questions or then raise their concerns. On May 21st, City Council had a first reading of the ordinance to approve the large grant funding decisions of the allocation committee. Verbal and written testimony were accepted during the May 21st first reading with council. Council considered a remand during the first reading, but the ordinance moved to a second reading. Council members requested more information on a range of issues. I just lost my place, sorry, this is a lot of notes. Which staff provided before the second reading, there we go. PCL staff prepared written responses to the concerns council raised and then sent them to council on May 30th. On June 4th, after an extensive discussion of the awards, the council voted 7-5 to remand the allocation committee's decisions. They then voted unanimously to extend the current grants for 1 year while instructions for the remand and next steps are developed. City councilors expressed a variety of concerns, both about outcomes of the process and use of the selection criteria. Some of their concerns conflict with one another and are about whether the allocation committee struck the right balance among different priorities. So some examples. One councilor expressed concerns that organizations without PCL funds were favored over current grantees, particularly over legacy Black-led organizations. Other councilors expressed concerns that smaller organizations and organizations without current PCL funded faced undue barriers. One councilor expressed concerns that lower scoring applications were recommended over higher scoring applications. Other councilors expressed specific concerns that the lowest scoring application in hunger relief was not selected for funding. Some councilors expressed a desire to fund effective, proven programs, while others questioned why specific current grantees with performance concerns did not have applications approved for those same programs with performance concerns. Some city councilors expressed concern about how the funding process was conducted. The following slides are a summary of their concerns along with information staff provided in response. Application submission. Based on feedback from an applicant, counselors expressed concern that staff prevented an after-school applicant from making a correction to an application and that the application was not funded because they were prevented from correcting it. Staff informed counselors in writing that the corrected data submitted by the applicant, who's a current grantee, was actually for the annual performance report for July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, not to the grant application. PCL staff met with the grantee and communicated the performance concerns verbally and in writing multiple times throughout fall of 2024 and winter 2025. The grantee had multiple opportunities to correct inaccurate information, but did not do so until after recommendations were released. On March 7, 2025, PCL staff recommendations were released to all applicants, and performance concerns were cited as a reason for not recommending this grantee's application for future funding. On March 25, 2025, the applicant contacted PCL staff to request substantial changes to previous performance data. Staff declined to allow past data reports to be corrected or to change the funding recommendation, given the timing of the request, past opportunities provided to correct the data, earlier notification of performance concerns, and no documentation submitted to support new data. The applicant included the performance data in written testimony that was considered by the allocation committee as part of their decision-making process. For current grantee partners, the performance from July 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2024, the 2.5 years after the pandemic, that's the only period that was taken into consideration as PCL staff's funding recommendations for performance. Also, no current grantees were offered the opportunity or permitted to correct previously submitted data reports after funding recommendations were sent to applicants. Counselors also expressed concern that reviewers were not diverse and representative of applicant demographics, were biased, or lacked knowledge about the organizations submitting the applications and the relationships they have with communities served, and that reviewers overweighted the quality of grant writing, which unfairly disadvantaged less experienced applicants. One counselor was concerned that an application selected for funding was not scored at all. Staff informed counselors that all applications were scored. 4 reviewers read and scored each application, and the application score was the median of the 4 reviews. Using the median mitigated the impacts of outlying scores if there was a very high or very low score. Staff also shared that reviewers had extensive lived and professional experience with PCL's program areas and racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. 88% had a professional or lived experience in one or more PCL program area. 59% had direct experience working in racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, and 24% had direct experience working in disability inclusion. At least 54% identified their lived experience as a person of color, immigrant, or refugee, living with a disability, navigating poverty, survivor of abuse, or with experience in the foster care system. Reviewers were not required to disclose their demographics on the sign-up form because selecting volunteers or employers based on demographics is illegal for the city. Many still chose to include details about their lived experience when they were discussing their qualifications. PCL staff also provided training, including training on bias mitigation, to all reviewers as part of their onboarding.
Some counselors were concerned that the allocation committee members may not have reviewed the submitted testimony from applicants. Allocation committee members received testimony and had more than 2 weeks to review it before their April 23rd meeting to make funding decisions. Some counselors expressed concern regarding the consideration of grantee performance in decision-making. One counselor was concerned that current grantees were penalized for poor performance during COVID and that organizations without PCL funding were favored because they didn't have previous performance records with PCL. Other counselors expressed the desire to fund effective programs. And again, as Brian highlighted just a moment ago, staff shared that we accounted for the impact of COVID pandemic on all current grantees by only considering performance data from July 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2024, the 2.5 years after the pandemic. Some councils suggested that applicants should provide disaggregated data on the demographics of their board, staff, and clients Staff shared that in previous funding rounds, our chart was included in applications that tracked these data. It was not included in applications in this funding round based on feedback after PCO's previous funding round and recent input from PCO's Community Council. They advised that the level of detail was burdensome for applicants, particularly for smaller organizations and those that currently do not have PCO grants. Instead, the application requested disaggregated demographic data on clients, staff, and board members, including race, ethnicity, primary language, gender, and disability status in a narrative format, giving applicants flexibility in how to include it. Applicants provided this information in varying ways with varying specificity. For example, many small organizations did not provide detailed data on race, ethnicity, identities for clients, staff, and board members. PCL staff do not provide disaggregated data for counselors due to the way applicants provided the data in applications.
So last, counselors also expressed concern about some individual organizations' decisions made about them, and particularly 3 applications from Black-led organizations that were not approved for funding. In Hunger Relief, 1 application wasn't approved for funding because they scored last, which is 23 out of 23. No application that scored last in any program area was approved for funding. The applicant and some counselors expressed concern about the comments made by one of the reviewers that scored the application, which were focused on writing quality and not content. However, all 4 reviewers that scored that application, they scored it low, the lowest or second lowest among all of the 7 applications that panel scored. And the same panel scored other applications submitted by Black-led organizations, and they were scored higher and they were selected for funding. In mentoring, 1 application wasn't approved because the Community Council deprioritized funding applications that were from current grantees for programs that are not currently funded by PCL, in favor of providing access to PCL funding for a broader diversity of organizations and services. Community Council also prioritized increasing access to funding for applications submitted by smaller organizations. So those are organizations with annual revenues under $6 million. And this application in mentoring was submitted by a current grantee organization with annual revenues that were over $18 million. The organization that submitted this application was approved for continued funding in after-school and foster care for a combined total of more than $1.9 million over 3 years. 6 applications from other Black-led organizations were approved in mentoring. These applications met the Community Council's priorities for funding small organizations and organizations without PCL funds. And after school, 1 application wasn't approved because the program was a current grantee who had significant performance concerns in FY24, providing only 10% of the contracted hours of services for elementary school children and 53% of the contracted hours of service to middle school youth, and with only 7% of the youth participating or the youth that were served met the program attendance goals. Due to these concerns and a January 2025 mid-year report that showed similar concerns and data trends, staff did not recommend the program for continued funding. After releasing funding recommendations, the applicant requested on March 25th, 2025 to correct the data they submitted in July 2024 and January 2025 grant reports without any supporting documentation. Staff did not change their recommendation. However, the applicant did submit the information that they wanted to correct the reports with to the allocation committee in testimony for their consideration. So this slide and the next slide list the 36 applications and programs that will not be funded starting July 1 due to the City Council's decision to remand funding decisions and extend existing large grants by 1 year. We wanted to recognize the effort and time that these organizations put into applying and participating in this grant process and the disappointment that we all feel at this juncture. As you can see from these slides, the programs that were selected by the Allocation Committee for funding are offered by a broad diversity of organizations providing culturally specific and culturally responsive services to the priority populations that were identified more than 2 years ago at the beginning of the funding process. We just want to state publicly that in addition to remanding all the funding decisions that the Allocation Committee made, Pending further instructions from City Council, the City Council also voted to extend current grants for 1 year, beginning July 1st of 2025, with reductions to current year funding of up to 25%. We have notified all the applicants as well as all the current grantees of the council's decisions, and we are working presently to amend all the current grant agreements to extend them at 79% of the current funding level, which is a 21% reduction, which is the amount that our revenues are projected to decline from this year compared to next year. And then last, at this juncture, we are working on how we can receive further instructions from City Council for the Allocation Committee's reconsideration on the remand. Based on conversations that staff has had to date with the Deputy City Administrators for Vibrant Communities and the Community and Economic Development Service Area, which are the area we were in, and the new one we are being transitioned to, it's likely that we will need to request another work session from City Council to get their instructions. Work sessions are requested and scheduled at the consent of the Council President. So we will keep the committee and the applicants informed as we learn more about what these next steps will be. It's not clear at this point whether the City Council will ask PCL to redo major parts of the process or ask the Allocation Committee to make different selections and different funding amounts based on Council considerations. So we will commit to keeping everybody in the loop as we understand more, but I'm sorry we don't have much concrete yet about what we need to do next. And that concludes the presentation of what's happened.
Thank you so much. That was exactly what I experienced, and I thought the way you laid it out was so clear and concise. And I've had more time than the rest of you to be involved in this over the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to get out of the way and allow the rest on the committee here to ask questions and express their concerns. I would like to ask this question at the beginning. First, I think I speak for everyone on how proud we are of all of you. This was really, really thorough work. This is a best practice in terms of how government makes decisions on giving money out into the community. So as being I was on the losing side of this vote as one of the 5, and please know that I know the other 4 have that same sentiment. So this was quite a divided vote. So I wanted to express that right here. I will say also there's been remorse from a few that have come to me personally. They have to figure out what that looks like. They have to step into a leadership role to figure out how to move forward with that remorse. But I just will say that I have heard from a few. So I do know there's rumblings on what that vote actually did. And we're also in the middle of our budget season. So I will say that we're in the council chamber a lot, dealing with so many meetings right now, that this could be something that will probably move forward after into July and August. That's my way of saying that I don't want to give up on the good work that you did. So I'm giving my clarity on that. I think that what we need is a revote more than a remand. And so that's my crystal clear opinion on this. And I appreciate your flexibility, your adaptability. You're trying to make sense out of what happened there. And I did vote yes on continuing to fund because it seemed like the only thing to do in terms of, what were our choices? So I'm going to now turn it over to my colleagues because I think we deserve to have some airing out of concerns and questions at this time. And I think and respect my colleagues so much. I feel like I failed you at that meeting. It was quite a shock to me what occurred in that council meeting on that day, as they were quite quiet in the work session and in the first reading. So it's nothing I've experienced before, to be honest with you. Okay, the floor is yours. And I turned to my colleague from the county. Hello, Commissioner.
Hello. I was shocked as well, having a relationship with many members of the city council. I did not receive any emails or phone calls asking any questions beforehand. So I did not schedule appearing in person because I thought, well, this is a unanimous recommendation. I haven't heard anything. I regret that. I wish that I would have been there because I feel very strongly about the process, having just completed the county's budget process and our own internal allocation process. I would have loved to have the level of information and the quality of review and data available to me as a Multnomah County Commissioner deciding on a $4 billion budget that we got deciding on these recommendations. I'm going to be honest, this is so much superior to any budget process I have ever been through, and I have been through a lot. I did take offense to some of the accusations that were brought forward. I can only speak about my own personal process in having a seat on the allocation committee, but I am very lucky to have staff who I roped in to helping me, one of which has a PhD and has focused on youth involvement as deterrent to crime prevention and other promoting pro-social behavior. The other has spent 20 years as a policy expert in early childhood and childcare policy. I myself have spent my career working specifically in human services. I have lived experience as a member of the LGBTQ population. I am a person with a disability and have spent 4 years of my life at Disability Rights Oregon. I am very vocally supportive of DEI and making sure that historically underrepresented and underserved communities be given specific attention and weight. The number of hours that my staff and I spent reviewing every single thing that was given to us, which was extensive. I mean, I would be happy to show the level of information that was provided to us. I frankly have never been given that much information. I intentionally tried to not look at organizational names because as somebody in elected office, I am very aware that some organizations have more political clout than others. And I very much did not want to tip the scale in a way that would have dishonored or disrespected the immense amount of work the volunteer grant scorers put in. I am not a professional grant scorer. I have not been trained on scoring grants, nor have I taken any kind of bias related to grants training. But I think that there is tremendous value in having the community own their process. This is their tax dollars. I certainly looked closely when an organization was recommended for funding, when a different organization may have scored just slightly higher, which was the only instances I ever saw were just like, oh, that one was allocated, that one scored a couple of points higher, but wasn't why. There was always an explanation, which I found satisfactory and not bias. So I'm profoundly disappointed by the city council for not asking more questions and instead deciding what our flaws in the process were without discussion. And I am incredibly curious what exactly they would want us to do differently, because I am unwilling to participate in a process that wants me to put my finger on the scale for more politically connected organizations. I am unwilling to do that. So I don't really know what they wanted us to do differently. that I can live with.
Thank you so much. I would like to
Second
bring.
that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I would like to have Felicia Tripp Folsom speak. She's remote and asked to have time in the meeting.
Sorry I
Wait.
could not be
There you
there in person. I do apologize. But as the longest serving member of the allocations committee, I too am befuddled by the city council's response. All the questions that they asked of staff have indicated that they didn't even take the time to review our process, which I find unacceptable as an elected. I too do not see anything else I would change in this process. And so I want them to tell us why, one, they did not review our process, and that's very clear by the questions they asked. And two, why do you not respect what community had asked for? Do they know the history of PCL? Do they know that we actually, after every round, large grant round, we have somebody that audits and reviews us and makes recommendations that we take and implement for the next round? Do they understand that we take it very seriously, that this is taxpayer dollars, that we actually have spent countless hours as allocation committee members reviewing the information, going to meetings, really working with staff, and I find this unacceptable. And I just want to note that because it really disappoints me that as an elected that you would not even take the time to review the process, to review the materials before you voted. I just wanted to add that to the record.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Both of you would like to speak too, I assume. Yes,
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah.
The floor is yours. Dan,
Yeah,
Flynn.
I set aside 20 minutes that day to watch the council meeting and quickly realized it was going to take a lot more than 20 minutes. And got to witness Lisa and team answer questions. And Commissioner Moore, there were a lot of questions, and I thought that all of them were very well answered with data and detail about the process and with composure and with tact when that wasn't necessarily extended to you when you were answering those questions or had the opportunity to speak. I don't want to repeat what others are saying. I think you know where we're going here, but I took some notes while we were there. I think the remand was, there are choices that could be made. There are two of them. You could vote for what was put in front of council, and once that was a no vote and there was a remand, you were left with no other choice but to extend the funding for a year. I thought that what you gave to the council as a potential solution was the only solution at the time. And so the issues, still unclear on those. We need clarity on what those issues may be. But throughout that, we learned that the issues were about a process, and a process that took, we could say it's a year, but it's years in the making to get to that point. And a year of process was unacceptable. But in 2.5 hours of a council meeting, it was okay to extend funding for a year without attention to past performance, without knowing the composition of the board, staff, or clientele, which we just saw in front of us, extending grant funding for a year without knowing if those grantees had applied for future funding in this next cycle, if they had applied for the funding specific to the program that they're now getting funding for an additional year. And then you just presented a list in front of us of organizations who will now not receive funding. So that is disappointing. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Dan. Charity, would you like to speak?
I have a question and then a comment. I don't have a lot to add. Everything that's being said resonates deeply with me. I'm disappointed and discouraged. This is my first time in this process as a volunteer, community volunteer, and I take it very seriously because it's my time. My time is valuable, and so is my expertise. And I care about integrity. And I don't believe that the council members acted in integrity. And that's hard to sit with. because of their role in public service as elected officials. And I'm so proud. That being said, I am so proud of all of you on the PCL staff and my fellow colleagues for working in integrity in everything that you do. And I have no doubts that this is going to be resolved in some way or another. But I do doubt that there's a trust problem that I can't put my finger on. And I think we got to get at that, because all the evidence points to funding what was recommended. So there's a disconnect there, I think, that needs to be discussed and understood. And I have a question about the performance of the organization that I think it was 10% of the target population was served, and then 7%. And that was a previous grantee. Are they going to be funded this next year despite their poor performance?
Yes.
And that's just that. There's nothing in the bylaws that can say, hey, these are public funds. You're not delivering the services you've said. We want to allocate these dollars differently to other existing organizations, other grantees that will have extended funding.
The current ordinance says we will extend all the grants.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no questions of staff, we'll yield the floor for public comment. I think there's folks signed up for public comment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge the people that are here today to do public comment. So let's move to that, and we're all ears. So take it away.
First up, we have Madison Riley Mullins, and on deck will be Eric Knox.
And is there a 3-minute time limit?
Yes, we'll be starting the timer shortly.
I know that sounds so harsh, but yeah, you knew that. Thanks. Welcome. Please state your name and the organization, and then the clock will start.
Heard. Okay. Madison Riley Mullins from Dougie Center. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here representing Dougie Center, which is Portland's peer grief support organization for children and youth. I'm Dougie Center's COO. First, I want to thank the Allocation Committee for recommending funding for the Dougie Center's LIGHT program. Thank you all. A peer-based grief support model specifically for foster youth. This recommendation reflects a strong alignment with the Levy's foster care priorities, especially around improving youth mental health and supporting those who are grieving. We acknowledge what I've heard you all say. Portland City Council remanding the full slate of recommended grants, including ours. We understand the need for transparency and accountability and want that in public funding decisions. And I'm here today to express how critical the investment is to our organization, and more importantly, to the foster youth we serve. And the urgent need for investment in this program specifically, which we're trying to bring to Oregon. Let me tell you a little bit about LIGHT. It's an evidence-based and trauma-informed program recognized in the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse for Child Welfare, and is built to help foster youth process grief and loss in a peer-supported setting. It addresses a critical service gap. Foster youth often face ambiguous loss, disrupted attachments, and other unique grief experiences. This program offers a space for healing that many youth currently don't have access to at all here. It advances equity goals. Many of the young people we serve are from communities prioritized by the Levy: Black, Indigenous, youth of color, LGBTQ2SIA+, and those impacted by systemic inequities and trauma in our community. And we're ready to start. Our staff is trained, our partnerships are in place, and we are prepared to launch the program upon funding approval. So our request, while I know it's falling on supportive ears, we urge the committee to continue standing behind the original recommendation and advocate for the city council to, to give money to the LIGHT program without delay. The longer this process is stalled, the longer foster youth in Portland wait for critical grief support they urgently need. We know this committee has worked diligently to recommend investments that are thoughtful, data-informed, and equity-centered. So we thank you for that, and we stand ready to deliver on the promises of these programs. So thanks for your time and continued leadership on behalf of Portland's youth.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Eric Knox, and on deck will be Asia Green Rhodes, Demetrius Rhodes, and Haley Rhodes.
Yes, my name is Eric Knox, and I'm the founder of HALA, which is a culturally specific mentoring organization that believes in the power and potential of Black and Brown youth. I always feel funny saying founder because when I got into this work, I wasn't trying to found anything. I was just trying to show up and be present. And that's why I don't drive into my community. I live in my community because I know the heart of mentorship is you can't be what you haven't seen. So when kids and families see me walking out of my door in the same neighborhood they live in, how do you quantify that? And with that being said, I want to thank the Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee for creating what many of us believe was a thoughtful, community-led, and equity-driven grant process. For the first time in a long time, Black-led organizations like HALA, ELSO, Triple Threat Mentoring, and the Ethiopian Eritrean Cultural Resource Center saw a process that reflected the values we fight for every day: community voice, transparency, and fairness. We encourage that a Black-owned consulting firm led outreach with over 800 BIPOC Portlanders, that your committee was majority BIPOC, that BIPOC PhDs at PSU conducted the scoring, that outlier reviews were removed. The process was intentional, community-centered, and equity-informed. And this was not performative, this was not charity, this was equity in motion. That's why we, the Black-led organizations now watching our funding pulled out from beneath us, are not fighting for dollars, we're fighting for dignity, for fairness, for the integrity of a process that claimed to honor community voice. When those recommendations were overturned, when our grants were cast aside, when our presence in the final award list was quietly erased, it didn't just hurt, it re-traumatized. City Council's decision to remand the recommendations isn't just a delay, it's a dismissal. It's a dismantling, a dangerous precedent. It threatens to leave the community-rooted organizations in limbo for a year or longer, if we even survive that long. We are asking you to speak clearly and publicly. This process was fair, it was unbiased, it was centered in equity. Please do not allow City Council to take a full year to undermine the process, rewriting the rules, reshuffling the players, and delaying justice for organizations already selected to receive funding. Too much is at stake for our youth, our communities, and the future trust in both the process and this city. We urge the PCL Allocation Committee to engage the City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive community-centered process you followed, including steps to ensure their fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide more informed decisions making this move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Up next is Asia Green Rhodes with Demetrius Rhodes and Haley Rhodes on deck.
Welcome. Oh, comes on like a red dot.
The red dot will be on.
It should be on it.
Oh, there we go. Hello, my name is Asia Green Rhodes, and I am the program director at Triple Threat Mentoring. First, I want to thank the Portland Children's Levy. I know you guys are here. The Allocations Committee for rightfully awarding Triple Threat Mentoring and other organizations such as HALA, also EECRC, and more with funds. These funds allow Triple Threat the ability to provide one-on-one mentorship, hygiene bags, community outreach, scholarship support, lifeline phone calls and conversations, academic tutoring, athletic and extracurricular coaching, a safe environment where kids can be kids, an ear to listen, a hand to hold, and a heart that grows with every story told by one of our youth. The funds awarded to Triple Threat are not simply to get by, but so that we can change lives, and for that, we are grateful. We are deserving of these funds, which is why we stand in solidarity with all the other affected organizations. The City Council rejection of the funding recommendations based on political pressure and lobbying from larger institutions sends a message that once again, our kids are not enough, that providing before, during, and after school support to Black and brown kids is not enough, that lives changed is not enough, that our work is not worthy enough, and yet again, our families and communities see funds being stripped away. Allocation Committee, your process was fair and it was centered in equity, and for that, we thank you. However, what City Council is doing is not. We need fairness, we need equity. Please do not leave us in limbo for a year, as that will do extreme damage to our organizations and communities. We urge the PCL Allocations Committee to engage the City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive community-centered process you followed, including steps to ensure fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide more informed decisions making moving forward. We ask City Council to understand this isn't just a cry for help, but an urgent plea to dismantle a reoccurring theme of distrust, promises broken, and Black and brown organizations on the negative side of the receiving end. I'm glad there is a rumbling, and I hope the revote to do what is right happens swiftly and justly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Behind you, people are going like this. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Demetrius Rhodes, and I have the honor of serving at Triple Threat Mentoring as a mentor. We are an organization that focuses on uplifting, encouraging, and supporting our youth and families in our community daily. We strive for excellence in how we operate. We are intentional with our programming, and we do our absolute best to stretch our resources to serve the community the best we can. We help students navigate the challenges that come with academia, extracurriculars, and a variety of adversities. Our programming promotes academic success, self-confidence, life resiliency, social and emotional development, all of which are crucial for the progress of our youth. Those of us who have lived long enough understand how difficult it can be to navigate through your adolescent years. Research shows that just having a consistent positive reinforcement in your life as an adolescent can help you become more resilient and successful as you transition into your adult years. And that's what we do. That's what programs that are here sharing their voice today do. We do campus visits, home visits. We show up to games. We show up on the kids' turf, meeting them right where they are. We create space where they can learn, they can grow, and thrive. We can't express how important this is to us. Kids can come, they can express how they feel, what they're going through, and be honest. And that's what our mentors do day in and day out. We are fully committed and deeply care about this work. A quick story, I had a kid on my roster who was very well in school, handling his business, and then life hit him. You know, he lost a loved one that he really cared about. His whole world was shook, and it was a traumatic experience. He ended up doing poorly in school, picking up bad habits. He ended up having to transfer schools. And through that process, he realized that, life was a storm at that moment. And he asked me, because I'm going to this different school, will I still have a mentor? Will you still be there for me? Can I still be in this program? Can I still be a part of Triple Threat? And I had the ability to say, yes, of course. Like, I'm there for you no matter what. I'm going to be there through the transitions, through the good times, the bad times. I'm going to be a consistent positive reinforcement in your life. And that's just a story, just a short picture of like what our mentors do day in and day out. And these are, and that's the power of the story, why this is important and why we need your help and your support to stand with us in challenging the council and the decision making. As a city, we often express concern for our future. And we all know that the youth are our future, and investing in the youth is investing in the future. So today, I humbly request that the PCO Allocations Committee to engage with City Council and provide a thorough overview for the extensive community center process of the following, and to ensure that there is a cultural responsiveness and alignment with community voices, and making sure that our voices are heard and things are handled with fairly and equitable. Thank you.
Next up, we have Haley Rhodes, and then on deck is Patrick Tran and Caleb Bird.
Hi, I'm Haley. I'm a mentor with Triple Threat Mentoring. I show up for these kids because I see myself in them. I see their potential and everything they're capable of. This work is personal. It's not just a job. It's community, it's love, and it's real. We're out here every day making a difference. I've seen firsthand how powerful it is when you feel seen, supported, and safe. And that's exactly what our organizations bring to the table. We did everything we were asked to. We showed up. This isn't about funding. It's about trust. It's about valuing lived experience and leadership of Black and Brown-led organizations, doing real work on the ground. But make no mistake, funding is essential. Without it, the services and experiences we provide our kids and the capacity at what we do them will be severely impacted. All we ask is that you continue to believe in what we're building, not just because we're changing lives, we're saving them, and our kids deserve nothing less. We sincerely ask the PCL Allocations Committee to engage City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive community-centered process you followed, including steps to ensure fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide a more informed decision moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley.
Next up is Patrick Tran, who might not be available due to a conflict, in which case Caleb Bird, and then on deck, Taylor Green and Josiah Green.
Morning. Oh, I'm sorry, that was pretty loud. Let me get this right. My name is Caleb Bird. I'm a mentor at T3, also known as Triple Threat Mentoring. Today, I want to share with you guys my story. Working with T3, Triple Threat Mentoring, we believe every person deserves access to opportunity and a fair chance to build a stable life for themselves and their families. Over the years, we've established ourselves as a trusted partner in the community, one that listens to the people's needs, understands their challenges, and delivers service and help to their families. Today, the need for what we have to offer has been never greater. Rising cost of living, economic uncertainty, a widening wealth gap has put an enormous strain on the households in our community. Our organization has been a vital support system for families navigating these challenges. And without this funding, our ability to continue meeting those needs would be impacted. This funding is not just a financial transaction, it's an investment into the young people of our community. It's about protecting the economic health of our neighborhood. Our ask today is that we urge you guys on the committee, on the PCO Allocations Committee, to engage City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive community-centered process you followed, including steps to ensure fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide a more informed decision making moving forward. I thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Next up is Taylor Green, on deck, Josiah Green, and then Jonas Cassie.
Okay, wait. Oh, it's on. Oh, sorry. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Green, and I am a mentor with Triple Threat Mentoring. I've been a mentor with Triple Threat for 3 years now, and in that time, I've watched young people transform, not just in what they do, but in how they see themselves. Many of the youth I work with face real challenges, from poverty, violence, lack of support,
and so much more, but Triple Threat creates a safe space where they are seen, heard, and valued. It's more than mentoring, it's community, and it's family. In our program, mentors build meaningful connections based on cultural understanding and trust. We support mentees holistically, helping them grow academically, in athletics, and with attitude, our 3 A's. Meanwhile, our mentors emerge more stronger, are more self-reflective, adaptive, and fulfilled. This dual impact benefits individuals and strengthens our community by fostering a cycle of growth, empathy, and leadership. Mentoring is a relationship built on trust, support, and cultural understanding. As mentors, we're not just guiding, we're showing young people of color that someone genuinely believes in them. We value their identity and are committed to their growth. Studies show that a long-term mentor relationships, 6 months or more, lead to measurable improvements in social, academic, and psychological well-being. When you pull funding from programs like this, you're not just cutting a budget line. You're cutting off relationships, momentum, and a rare opportunity for young people to break cycles and build futures. We genuinely urge the PCO Allocations Committee to engage City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive, community-centered process that you followed, including steps to ensure fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide more informed decision-making moving forward. Thank you for your time and for investing into what truly changed lives.
Thank you, Taylor.
Good afternoon. I'm on now. There we go. All right. Good afternoon. Good to see you all. Good for you guys to see me. My name is Josiah Green. I'm a mentor to middle school boys through Triple Threat Mentoring. Middle school is a fundamental age. I think we know that. You know, they have the world at their fingertips at this age. And I think that's why it seems like they're growing up so fast. And Triple Threat allows me and my fellow mentors the opportunity to work with them one-on-one. These kids, without argument, are the future. I think it's critical that we do whatever we can to ensure that they get the help they deserve in a world full of distraction and temptations. When I tell people what I do, one of the most common things I hear in response is, man, I needed something like that growing up. We're in the schools daily. We meet the kids every day. We give them places to be and direction on where to go. To take that away from them kids is leaving them to figure out this life all alone. And this may be my localized experience, but that still doesn't make it unimportant. I believe it's our job to guide the next generation, and we've been doing that while building a community around what we do, and now we're starting to extend our reach into other areas of need. If the intent of the levy is to elevate underfunded, high-impact, community-driven work, then Triple Threat Mentoring undoubtedly deserves to be funded. We urge the PCL Allocations Committee to engage City Council and provide a thorough overview of the extensive community-centered process you followed, including steps to ensure fair scoring, cultural responsiveness, and alignment with community voices to help guide more informed decision-making moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Josiah.
Next up is Jonas Kasi, and on deck will be Alex Sanchez and Lydia Mojes.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Jonas. I'm the founder and director of ECRC, Ethiopian and Eritrean Cultural Resource Center. In 2018, I was asked to interpret for a group of Ethiopian and Eritrean families during parent-teacher conference at the local elementary school. What I witnessed that day changed the course of my life and the mission of our organization. Several of the students I interpreted for were performing well below grade level. Their teachers were concerned, their parents were worried, and I left that meeting unable to rest, knowing that these children had so much untapped potential but lacked the support they need. With the parents' permission, I began volunteering as a mentor and tutor for 5 of these students, meeting with them twice a week. Just 6 months later, I returned to the school for another round of conference. This time, the story had changed. Every single one of These 5 students had exceeded expectation. That experience inspired me to continue and eventually build what would become ECRC Youth Mentoring Program. Thanks to PCL small grant, we are able to grow this idea into fully operating community-based mentoring initiatives. Over the years, we have supported hundreds of African immigrant and refugee youth, empowering them through cultural responsive education, social, emotional support, and connection to trusted adults mentor. That's why today's decision by the Portland City Council to suspend the large grant award to ECRC and to other organizations with proven community impact is not only disappointing, but deeply confusing and unjust. This allocation was the result of a thorough, transparent process led by the PCL Allocation Committee rooted in data, equity, and community voice. To disregard this committee's professional ethical decision, especially after years of demonstrating success, is a painful reminder that political dynamics too often overshadow real community needs. Even more troubling is the influence of certain individuals or organizations who have fed misleading narrative to City Council in the name of Blackness, as though only their work or identity matters. Such behavior undermines the collective work of many Black-led and Black-serving organizations and foster division rather than unity. It's unethical and deeply harmful to the very community we all claim to serve. To the PCL staff and allocation committee, I thank you for your integrity, you believe in us, and your unwavering commitment to equitable outcomes. The trust you placed in ECRC was not misplaced, and we remain proud of the impact we have made over the past 4 years as a small grant recipient. ECRC will continue mentoring, advocating for, and working alongside our youth, and we will continue working with partners like you whose actions reflect true leadership, community, accountable, and hope. Thank you again, and may be blessed for your commitment to Portland's children. Jonas.
Next up, we have Alex Sanchez joining us on Zoom. Go ahead.
Hello, Council. My name is Alex Sanchez. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns, and I am the Executive Director of the YWCA of Greater Portland. I want to thank you all for having me here today. When the City Council chose to ignore the results of a community-driven and equity-centered process and instead put their finger on the scale in favor of a few politically connected organizations, they dismissed 36 agencies who are doing vital work in our community, many of whom are serving the most marginalized and difficult to reach populations in our city. As the leader of a mainstream organization, I want to be very clear that I stand in solidarity with all of the Black and Brown leaders of these small and medium-sized organizations who were dismissed by City Council's recommendations to remand. In my own organization, the YWCA of Greater Portland, we were the highest scoring application in the child abuse prevention portfolio. And the funding recommended for us would have allowed us to expand our highly successful therapy program to include services for parents and their children. Instead, the decision to remand will cause us to ramp down our program, cutting services to survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking and their children. With just a few weeks until the start of a new fiscal year, we will be unable to find new funding to support this program, and we are facing the potential loss of staff members who will see their hours and benefits cut in an incredibly uncertain employment landscape in the nonprofit sector. And our story is not unique. This decision has impacted dozens of agencies, both large and small, who are now facing staff cuts, programming shifts, and other impacts at a time when we are already facing widespread uncertainty and funding instability in our sector. I want to urge the Allocation Committee, and I know that I am speaking to the choir right now, but I want to urge the Allocation Committee to use its power to urge the City Council to reverse its remand on these funds and allow us, these 36 organizations who stood to provide vital services in our community, to do what you asked us to do. and not leave us in limbo for a year while we dissect a process that was community driven. I really want to thank you for all of your support. It's been really heartening to hear the support from the Allocation Committee, and I hope that that support will extend to some very urgent work with City Council. Thank you so much.
And then Lydia Moges.
Good afternoon, members of the Allocation Committee. My name is Lydia Mogus, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of EECRC and in solidarity with our fellow grant awardees, Hollow Mentors, ELSO, and Triple Threat Mentoring. We are deeply grateful for the mentorship grant award we received, and we recognize the immense responsibility and trust that comes with it. However, we are also deeply concerned by the City Council's recent decision to remand the budget and delay funding based solely on their confusion and misunderstanding of placement. This decision not only disrupts critical timelines, it jeopardizes our sustainability and the trust our community's youth and families have placed in us and in this process. The Portland's Children's Levy staff led an extensive community-centered grant-making process that was rooted in fairness, transparency, and cultural responsiveness. From the initial outreach to clear scoring rubrics to centering community voices throughout, this process reflected what equity in action looks like. EECRC, along with Hollow, ELSO, and Triple Threat, was not awarded by chance. We were awarded because of our consistent results, our impacts, and our deep roots in the community. These programs are not just services, they are lifelines for Black youth who deserve mentorship that reflects their experiences and nurtures their brilliance. To remand a well-vetted decision undermines the voices of community reviewers, the equity commitments of this city, and the hard work of both applicants and staff. We urge the Allocation Committee to actively engage with City Council and clearly present the integrity of this process because it reflected due diligence, equity, and meaningful community of engagement. We also ask that you find an alternative to a full year-long delay. A year is not just time, it's lost opportunity, broken trust, and stalled progress in the lives of the youth we serve. Our efforts, our patience, and the city's allocation budget should not be wasted. We need immediate solutions that respect the decisions already made and prevent harm to the very communities this levy was built to uplift. We are not just asking for funds, we are asking for justice, for continuity, and for the honoring of a process that was carried out with care and integrity. Thank you.
And we'll call one more time for Patrick Tran. And if not, that wraps up public testimony.
Thank you so much. I want to pivot us in our time remaining. First, I want to start off with which I think you all would agree was really riveting, actually heartbreaking testimony. Thank you. You were preaching to the choir, and it worked. And we have a rally now. I would ask that you all please reach out to the entire council. Our office will do our best to compile this testimony and send it out ourselves, but hearing directly from you. Lisa, if you could come forward. So the choice was to go into a brief recess or just do it out in public with you, so we'll do it in public. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Clearly, I think that we need to, the city council, which I'm a member of, needs to do a revote and to revote on what was sent to them. My opinion is that 1 year is too long as well. My opinion is that the work that you all did was pretty flawless. I think you heard that from all of us. I remember myself trying to poke a few holes at it, and dang, if you all didn't respond so quickly and accurately with information. So there were a few things I think all of us didn't enjoy hearing from some council members, and one was that we didn't do our homework. So that was really ridiculous to listen to that. I think what I need to hear, though, is if there's a majority that all of us agree 100% that we should lobby for a revote.
I think we should lobby for a revote. This is Felicia on the Zoom. I want council to not only hear this testimony, but I want them to get a rebuttal to our rebuttal. What is it that they saw that we did not do? They should answer their own questions that they asked PCL and have a rebuttal of why they voted the way they did, and answer to this community that just came forward. As a member, especially of the African American community, I find it appalling that they did not think that I would have taken the time to read every single application. It is my responsibility as a member of this community to not only read the applications but to make sure that this process is equitable, because it's not just me I'm representing, it's many other communities of color that are out there doing this work. And it is quite sad that we had a city council that decided not to even do their own homework, to say that we did not look at these organizations. I just say shame on the council for this one. And I think we should force them to revote.
I feel quite affirmed in my statement earlier. Thank you so much, Felicia. Why don't you all just see if we're all on the same page?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
speak up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and I'm happy to come in front of the council.
So what we want to do is bring this back as a revote. We will also make sure that we coordinate it with all our schedules so that we are all there. And we will also coordinate with those who spoke today. As clearly, I think if I could redo something, it may be more testimony like this prior to the vote and the first vote. I think that was probably the one thing I would suggest going forward, because they didn't hear your compelling testimony until they already had their minds made up in the after the vote. So I think that we're all on the same page. Is there anything staff needs from me and us as a committee? Do you want us to take an official vote on this?
I don't know if we need an official vote. I do think procedurally is where we're going to be challenged. We have to just figure out some kind of procedure that we could essentially come before them to ask for a revote, because it's not something that is a typical action that's brought before council by a bureau, essentially. So we got to figure out some way to do it.
We'll figure that out.
Okay.
That's my job. I am a member of that city council. I know I'm in the minority, but I am a member of that council. And we got that, and we will work together with all of you in solidarity.
I mean, that's awesome to hear that everybody is willing to get up there and say that, and that you did your homework.
So you did preach to the choir, but the choir needed it. So thank you for being here, all of you. Is there anything else you need from this unified allocation committee?
I don't think so.
All
Thank
right,
you
let's
all.
do this.
And thanks very much for the folks who came.
Yeah.
It was a really moving testimony.
Thank you so much again for your testimony. We're all doing this. Yeah. I believe that was the last item on the agenda, correct? Okay. Thank you all again for joining us. Agendas and future meetings will be sent to the Levy email. This is the standard closure here. We have a Facebook page. I'm sure all of you know about it, at Portland Kids Levy. And we're also, you can find us posted on the Portland Children's Levy website. So thank you for being here. We have a lot of work to do to move this forward. We will make sure we make this wrong right. And I appreciate all of you again for being here today. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much. The meeting's now adjourned.
Thanks.